Someone wants to know what their house is worth, and we tell them, and we believe based on the facts that we bring to the meeting that it's worth this amount, and they don't believe us, and they work with someone else. And we've lost sales certainly that way, but I would much rather lose a sale at the beginning by being honest than not being honest with them and having a house on the market in 60 days and an upset client. And the one thing a lot of people don't realize about real estate is that it's a very expense-heavy job. Whether you sell anything or not, you're still paying fees. And so if you're only selling 3 or 4 houses a year, you're probably better off to get a part-time job than become a realtor, because there wouldn't be much difference in your pay. Welcome back to the S Factor. My name is Ryan Waller, and I run a real estate team out of Guelph, Ontario. My success factor is creativity. Don't be afraid to try new things.
Good morning, Ryan. Welcome to the S Factor. Happy New Year. How are you today?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Excited about the new year, the new opportunities it brings. Let's get this started.
Okay, awesome. That's the attitude that we need to tackle 2023. And we're going to be talking about 2023 a little more in detail. The other thing we're going to be obviously talking about is your real estate career. But before all that, let's talk about the 2 decades you spent in corporate. If you could give us like a quick summary of the kind of work that you did and what kind of skills were you bringing in to your next career, which is real estate.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to summarize it the best I can in my 20-year career. So I started out many years ago. I was in ad agencies, and I started working for ad agencies at the age of 24. And they were downtown Toronto. They were big worldwide agencies that had a lot of brands that probably your viewers have heard of before. And it really helped me think about things in a creative way. It was a great place to start a career. And you worked long hours, you didn't get paid much, and you had the ability to learn from people how to think creatively, how to come up with new ideas, how to fail on some ideas. And it really led me forward into my career in many different ways with a skill set that was helpful. From there, I went into marketing roles. I was recruited by one of our clients. I've been in a variety of marketing roles at head offices for Indigo bookstores, Metro, the grocery chain, and Kimberly-Clark was the last marketing role I had in 2005. And all of those were marketing roles where marketing really started to ramp up for these consumer packaged goods and retailers. And they really wanted to try to find a competitive edge. And marketing was sort of a big launch during that time. And many of these companies had not even had marketing departments before. So it was a really exciting time to be part of those things. And again, being part of some really big brands and retailers. So it was exciting times. And then lastly, when I was at Kimberly-Clark, they had approached me to say, hey, you seem to be okay at selling things. Have you ever thought about getting into sales? And I thought, I don't know. I've really never thought about it. And I thought it was this dirty word that people talked about and how you had to sell things and it was unethical. And it was exactly the opposite. And what I really liked about it when I went into sales was that you are able to create a sales story for a product to help sell people things. And so I worked on a number of brands from Kleenex to Huggies diapers. And I really, really enjoyed it. And then lastly, before I got into real estate, my last job was I worked for Nestle. And I worked for Nestle for a decade in solely in sales roles and progressively going from an account manager to a national account manager to my last role there, which was a director of the sales team. And it was a great job in that Nestle was a very entrepreneurial company. You had the ability to do a lot of things that maybe in other companies you wouldn't have had that opportunity to do. And it gave me a lot of the skills that I still use today. So I'm very thankful of my last job at Nestle over that decade, just because of all of the things I learned, not only professionally with skill sets, but also how to deal with people, how to not be afraid of failure, all of these different things.
Okay, excellent. So at the age of 41, you decided to leave corporate world and become a realtor, right? So what sort of led you to making that decision?
Well, it was, and it wasn't fully a cut and dry of going from corporate world to Nestle. It was sort of a slow transition. And what happened was when I was at Nestle, my wife and I moved from Toronto to Guelph, where we live now, and during that process, we had to sell a home, and we sold a condo that we had bought in Toronto. And I sort of liked the process. I sort of was interested in what the realtor was doing and how they marketed it and how they sold it. And so when we moved to Guelph, I thought I want to buy an investment property. So I sort of figured it out on my own, hired a realtor, and bought a rental property. And I really liked that process of buying an investment for the long term, managing it. And so I bought another, and then I bought another. And then at that point, I had 3 or 4. And I thought, geez, I really like this. And maybe I should get my real estate license and see if I can actually become a realtor. And so at the time, my wife was at home with our kids, and I had a safety net of a corporate job with, benefits and all of these sorts of things. And it was really risky to leave. But once I realized that I could do it, I got a real estate license and I had a couple of sales. I realized I can do this, but being a realtor part-time, if any of your viewers are thinking about doing it or are a realtor part-time, they'll know that it's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, the reason is because you can't control when your clients want to see houses or when they want to sell their house. And so you have to be available when they need you and not necessarily outside of your own hours for work. So from my perspective, I had to do it full time, and I finally pulled the trigger at the end of 2017 and decided to do it full time, and went head on into it. Not knowing whether it was going to work, not having a guaranteed income. It was a big risk for sure.
All right. Definitely, as you mentioned, that it was a risk. I think that from my understanding, year 3 was extremely successful with $35 million of closed transaction. But what about year 1 and year 2? How did you go about acquiring new clients? Was it really difficult being a realtor? And as you said, there's no safety net, right? So you're really in a very entrepreneurial environment. So how did you go about managing all those things?
Well, it's one of the things I think if I can get across to your listeners and viewers today is having a mindset that it's okay to fail. And so from my perspective, when I got into this job as a realtor, I left my corporate job on good terms. I was always welcome back if I couldn't make it work. And I had that safety net that I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to change careers. And if I can't make it work, what's the worst that could happen? I could always go back to my safety net of a corporate job, either with the company I left or any other company, in a 1-year term. So I gave it 1 year. My wife and I agreed that we try it out for 1 year and see how it went. And immediately I had to hit the ground running. And there are 2 things I think that were really beneficial. One of them was that I was now selling real estate in a city that I grew up in. So I had a lot of personal relationships there already. But the bigger challenge was telling those people that I was a realtor and making them believe that working with me is a good choice. I'm new to the profession, but I can certainly do the things in the profession. And so one of the things we started to do was to position ourselves with a niche. And the niche in our market was providing market authority. And market authority would be something that your clientele would or general consumers out there would listen to you, they'd hear you, they get you and your information, and they trust it as an unbiased source of information. And there was a lack of that in the market. There were people doing it. Certainly, I mean, there always have been people providing information like that, but not in a way that just felt like you don't want anything. You're just giving information, and if people want to work with you because they enjoy your content or they trust your content, then that's what I was aiming for. So we partnered with the local newspaper here. It's a digital newspaper, and we wrote monthly articles for them. We're still doing it now, almost 5 years later, and we ended up on the local radio station, which has been playing almost 5 years later, ongoing. And both of those things were really instrumental in getting us started because it gave us this it made us appear bigger than we were. And some people would say, fake it till you make it. And it made us appear that we were a larger brand than we were. And I had the sales skill set. I just didn't have the skill set specifically to real estate. And so I was able to make it work very quickly, and it sort of went from there. But year one and year two, where we sold 35 million in 2020, the first year was probably 12 million. The second year was 20, and then we started the big leap at year three, and then we're going to hit a big at year five as well.
That's a very interesting thing you pointed out, and I want everyone to focus on that, was the localized approach. Because I think that when you look at marketing as a beast, it seems like it's way bigger of something to handle than most people can, right? So they're like focused on, oh, do we go digital marketing? Do we do like the traditional marketing? What should we do, right? But your approach, because you're in Guelph, right? You took a very localized approach, whether it be through the newspapers, whether it be through radio. And the thing is that there is an audience for that, obviously. So you tapped into that and you did really well. That is excellent. So the numbers we're talking about, this is all for residential properties, correct?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the odd time there is a commercial in there, but very rarely. 95% of our business is residential real estate.
Okay. Excellent. So how did you go about managing all these transactions, all these clients? What was your approach in doing all that?
Well, the thing we realized, and of course, this is something we're still going through as well. I mean, anybody who builds a business goes through these growing pains, and you tackle them as they come along, and you try to be proactive. And sometimes, more often than not, you are reactive to some of the things that come up. Early on, we realized that this was probably going to be a bigger snowball than I anticipated. So my wife, who has a sales background, a pharmaceutical sales background, was coming out of her stay-at-home mom days. The last of our children was going into school. She was going to be getting back into the workforce. And I thought, I need help, and you're a good salesperson. And why don't we work together? So we did. So the first step was we started to work together. So now we had 2 employees, and we managed it that way. And a lot of our office, the brokerage fees that we pay include a lot of extra help from administrative staff at the office. So they do a lot of the paperwork for us. And a lot of the day-to-day stuff. And my wife and I were out selling houses. And, it was a divide and conquer where there are 2 of us. We could be in 2 places at once. And we made it work. And then from there, we hired a 3rd person last year, Jesse. And we're just in the midst of hiring a 4th person to start in 2023. So this is something that has, over time we've tried to get ahead of it, like I said, but it's tough. A growing business, you have to figure out and anticipate what your challenges are going to be before they get there, and it's not always easy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a good thing that you said that obviously it's not easy. You need the help, and you brought in the people required, and you are growing slowly. That is excellent to hear. Okay, so now let's just move on a little bit and talk about the industry as a whole. I want to give some value to people who are thinking about becoming a realtor, right? We know that, especially in Toronto, and in the GTA in general, like it's a very saturated field. We have thousands of realtors. Yes, albeit majority of them are part-timers, but they are already registered as realtors, right? So someone who's thinking about getting into this, what is your advice?
So my advice would be to do your homework first. And oftentimes we hear people get into real estate because of a couple of things that are actually not totally true. One of them is that you can get rich easily, which is completely not true at all. The other one is that you love houses and you love going to open houses, and so you want to become a realtor. And I mean that's great that you love houses. It's great that you're on realtor.ca or wherever you're surfing for houses, but there is a business element to real estate that I think many people forget about. And I would advise anybody that's getting into real estate to think about whether you have the entrepreneurial spirit, whether you have the business acumen, whether you are okay with failing. And you also have to have not deep pockets, but you have to be able to manage your money in a way that there are going to be times where you may not have an income, especially when you're starting out. You could be 3 or 4 months between paychecks. And the one thing a lot of people don't realize about real estate is that it's a very expense-heavy job. Whether you sell anything or not, you're still paying fees. And so if you're only selling 3 or 4 houses a year, you're probably better off to get a part-time job than become a realtor, because there wouldn't be much difference in your pay. So anticipate your expenses for sure.
That's a very critical thing you mentioned right there, is paying expenses. I think a lot of people get this wrong, is that you actually have to pay your brokerage as opposed to your brokerage paying you. Correct.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so most brokerages, there's a number of, it's not a set in stone formula, but there are a number of brokerages that offer different types of packages and different rates and what your fees include. But the bottom line is that almost every brokerage has a fee for you to be there and to participate and to be part of their team. And there are brokerage fees for sure. There's also local real estate board fees. There's insurance that you have to pay for. There's your own out-of-pocket expenses like driving your car and getting gas and all of these types of things that you have to pay for. They're all on you. And your broker is really giving you no monetary value at all, other than being your broker and being supportive. They don't pay you anything.
Right. And that is something which I think is a misconception in the industry. A lot of people who are new to this or are thinking about it don't necessarily see it that way. So that is something which is very important they should consider.
Is a very important thing. Yeah.
Right. As a realtor, what are some of your partnerships like? Because you have stagers, photographers, maybe you work with movers.
Yep.
So who are these partners and how do you manage these relationships?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's funny because over time you develop relationships like your personal relationships. There are people that you work better with and people that you jive better with and you just have better relationships with. And so we have a stager that we work very closely with. We call her anytime we have a listing, and she's very good. We have a process down pat where she meets with the clients, gives us sort of a rundown of what it will cost, and then implements it from there. Same thing with the photographers. We have a great photographer that we request every time we do listings because we like the style that they do. Our clients like the style. We have different marketing people that we work with at the newspaper that I had mentioned to you, at the radio station. Partnerships there. We have partners for client gifts. So we work closely with a couple of flower shops. We worked last year with a brewery called Royal City Brewery in Guelph and produced our own beer. That was a partnership that we developed as well. Partnerships are something that, if you're talking about success of a real estate agent, partnerships and relationships are probably the key thing there. And not that you're trying to business from your partners, but if you have a partnership and someone needs a good real estate lawyer and you have a good partnership with one or two, you're going to recommend them. And it goes the other way too. And I think the people that you work with and the partners that you have are a reflection of you as an individual and as a realtor. So it's important that you have good quality people as your partners.
Right. Very well said. One of the other things which I wanted to know was, how do you go about managing unrealistic expectations from clients? Because we've seen the real estate industry go up and down like this, right? During the pandemic, it went up like this. Right now, we're sort of going down. They make an emotional decision. It's a house.
Yep.
Maybe it's their primary home, right? In most cases. So the thing is that the decision is more emotional than it is very financially driven in some of these cases, right? So how do you manage these expectations?
Well, it's actually a very good question. And one of the things that it was easy during the pandemic was to avoid those conversations because sellers were very happy with the result. The expectation you had to manage during the pandemic was with buyers because prices kept going up and up and up, and it was trying to convince a buyer that a home that they were purchasing was a good investment and that not to get caught up in the emotions. Now that the market is coming down, it's the other way, and now you're working with sellers to manage their emotions and buyers actually are really, for once in quite a long time, happy with the way the market's going. But it does come down to a skill set and setting expectations in negotiation. And there are a lot of people out there who, overlook negotiation as a skill, and it's something that's very important. Negotiation isn't a dirty word. It isn't something that, you're pulling the wool over somebody's eyes and tricking them. Negotiation is the ability to have a conversation and to come to an agreement with somebody where both sides feel like they're getting something and they're winning out of it. And we would much rather set those expectations up front with a client than disappointing them later when we can't get them the result that we promised them. And so it has cost us sales. Someone wants to know what their house is worth, and we tell them, and we believe based on the facts that we bring to the meeting that it's worth this amount, and they don't believe us, and they work with someone else. And we've lost sales certainly that way, but I would much rather lose a sale at the beginning by being honest than not being honest with them and having a house on the market in 60 days and an upset client. So it's a tough one. It's certainly a business decision, and it's cost of sales. But like I said, I'd rather be honest up front than to have an angry seller later.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So we're going to be transitioning a little bit and talking about the industry, what 2023 has in store for the market in general, interest rates. I'm not going to talk about the R word. That's like a taboo these days. Don't want to mention that and jinx the very first episode in this series for the new year. So where do you see the market headed for this particular year?
Well, I think the first half, the media is going to have a heyday with the news, simply because typically when you're looking at real estate results, you're looking at year-over-year numbers. And, as everybody knows, January to May were record months for the Ontario real estate market and most across North America. And so when we get into January and February and March, particularly the March of this year, 2023, we're going to be looking back and comparing it to 2022, and the numbers are going to look drastically different. So we're going to see, headlines where it's down 35%, 40% versus the prior year. And of course, that's going to happen because it was up again. We're comparing to a record year. I think once we get into the second half of the year where 2022 is sort of corrected, the numbers will look a lot more reasonable. And I anticipate that the overall dollar volume in real estate next year will decline. I suspect it will be down somewhere between 5 to 10%, just because there's just not as much money out there in the market as there was in 2022.
In terms of interest rates, just from your perspective, when you're talking to clients or you're talking to, people who have already bought homes, right? And some people are going to get a sticker shock sometime soon, whether it be this year or the next year. And some people have already gotten it with variable rates and such. So with interest rates, two things I wanted to know from you is, how is it affecting the market presently that you have seen? And going forward, none of us have a crystal ball, but where do you see this thing going?
Well, to answer the first question, how has it impacted the market? A lot of first-time buyers have been impacted in that the rates have gone up, and they qualify for less as a result. But I've also seen a lot of comparisons in that although the rates have gone up and people qualify for less, home prices have come down even greater. So in many cases, if you compare the two scenarios, it's not much different for a buyer these days, although the rates obviously have come up. For people on variable rates, it's certainly made them sit back and think about what they want to do. Anybody who has a variable rate has, I have one personally, and I've gone from 2% to 6% just this year. And of course, that's huge. It's not something that many people anticipated was going to happen at the beginning of the year. And it makes me think about what I'm going to be doing a lot more than when money was cheap. So a lot of people who were, hit by these rate increases, not only on their variable rate, but other things too, like a line of credit, those interest rates have gone up as well. And it's making people sit back and think. The headlines that come out, obviously, with inflation and all of these other R words that you were referring to, those type of things, people read those and they do have an impact on them, on consumers. And it's just made everybody sort of sit back. I do think, to answer your second question, where we're going at this year, I don't anticipate it's going to go much higher than it is right now. I do have mortgage brokers that I deal with that they believe that in the second half of 2023 that rates will start to come down slightly once inflation is tamed a little bit. We're starting to see inflation tame a little bit now, and so it is helpful. But I can't anticipate, and of course I hope I'm right, but I might not be, that they're going to go much higher than they are right now in the short term.
Excellent. One of the things you touched on, first-time home buyers, and I'm going to end it with this question right here. We hear a lot about first-time home buyers. We were all in that stage at one stage in our lives, right? So the thing is that, what are some of your tips that you have for first-time home buyers when they start working with a realtor? Starting from how to select the right realtor, how to work with them throughout the process, and what expectations they should have.
Yep. I have a few tips. One of them is, finding the right realtor. I think for a first-time buyer, they should look for a realtor who deals with first-time buyers. Realtors tend to have their specialties, and the specialty that my wife and I have, for example, we love working in older neighborhoods, older homes. We do sell newer homes, many of them, but our specialty is in older homes. We have a guy on our team, Jesse, who deals a lot with first-time buyers. In fact, almost exclusively with first-time buyers. And the key is to make sure that you have somebody on your side that knows the unique challenges and things they're going to talk about with a first-time buyer. They may take more time to get things done, so you need a more of a patient realtor. You need a realtor who understands the process, who can explain it easily to a client and walk them through it. Because many people, even if they bought a home already, some of them don't even know what the process is. They just trust that their realtor is looking after it. So first-time home buyers, look for a realtor that does work with first-time home buyers. And another key thing for a first-time home buyer is to talk to your bank first before you start to look at homes, because we see it time and time again where a first-time buyer will go out and look at homes and fall in love with one only to find out that it's above their budget and what they can qualify for. So a key element is making sure that when you are buying a home, you know up front and have done the legwork to figure out what you're qualified for. You're going to have to do it eventually anyways. You might as well do it before you even start looking.
Excellent. Those are things that everyone should look out for. And this has been a very interesting conversation, Ryan. Thank you so much for your time. If people wanted to get in touch with you, where would they look?
Yeah, the best place, it's in all of our marketing, is just through our website. It's pretty simple. It's Beth, is my wife's name, Beth, and Ryan.ca. So that's bethandryan.ca.
Yep.
And you can contact us right from there.
Yep, and that will be linked in the description below. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today, and I wish you the very best for 2023.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it, and all the best to you too.